Good morning. It's nice to see all of you on this unlikely clear weather day. It's unlikely that this many people would come for an alternative day, alternative to all the other things that one might do, has done, will do. Rosemary, are you the Omze? I am. She's here to keep me in line. Thank you. This day, this beginning of the new year, has for a long time been a tradition at our center, coming to the end of one year and beginning another. While the dates that we use are not exactly the same as the ones that are used in the culture from which the tradition that we study came from. But what is common apparently for human beings in general is that we make time periodically, like at Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's, and you can make a long list, during which we try to do something that is special, that might be helpful for ourselves and others. And so here we are again, nothing particularly important about the position of this planet whirling around the sun. What is important is that we will spend the next couple of days engaging in practices that could be enormously useful to each one of us. And by extension, of course, if we benefit from our efforts, then that benefit is naturally, kind of organically shared by everyone we meet, everyone we have a word with, So first of all, Dora's not here, is she? Just curious. So, okay. The first thing that we do this morning is our refuge prayer. Do you each have one? Or do we need to get?
Do you mean this one?
Yeah, but everybody needs one. Yeah. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Our purpose today specifically is what we call the practice of Jine, which is a calm abiding, a method by which we can sit carefully, sit mindfully, put aside or at least relax into our distractions. But in the process of going over the practice of Shine, we will also engage in a few teachings, and along the way in the afternoon a discussion about the value, the reasons for engaging in certain practices and for holding certain views. Teachings which are critical to our successful practice. Teachings which are critical for our successful practice even when we don't know what success would look like. So we begin first of all to put aside all of our usual thoughts about where we are, perhaps thinking already what we'll do this afternoon, recalling what we did yesterday and last night. In other words, perhaps unskillfully encouraging ourselves to be utterly carried away by our hoped-for experiences today and later, and our fears that those experiences will not materialize in the manner in which we hope or expect. So our first antidote to encouraging our mind to remain in a distracted state, and I think encourage is actually the appropriate phrase, word. The first antidote is to turn our attention and take refuge from all of the habitual patterns that we engage in routinely, mostly without even noticing that we're doing it. The ritual is to literally turn away from all of that. And because it's not easy for us to just turn away, we have to turn away to something, or we find it quite difficult to just leave everything behind. Kind of like someone said, if you walk off into the desert, nobody goes without a sandwich. You can't just leave so easily. So we turn our minds to the Buddha. And the Buddha then also is not so straightforward at first, because our inclination is to look outside ourselves when we go for refuge to the Buddha. Perhaps we look at a statue. Perhaps we recall the word, or we recall the name of Shakyamuni Buddha. But we also need to look at the most important Buddha that we have, which is our own nature, which is the awakened mind itself. So again, so that those who have heard it before will not forget, and those who have not heard it before will have something to ponder. In the time of the Buddha, it is said, when he was walking through a village in India, a man went up to him and asked him what the difference was between the Buddha and this man himself. The story is the Buddha replied, "There is no difference. We are both endowed with the awakened nature. If there is a difference, it is not a difference in that nature, but a difference in recognition. I recognize that awakened nature, you do not." And that then is our introduction to what the day is about, what the week is about, what our life is about, if we decide, determine, commit to engaging in these practices. It is to come to the place of fully recognizing that awakened nature. And having recognized it, living in that space. So we'll begin this morning then by turning our minds to refuge and reciting the refuge and bodhicitta prayer 3 times together.
Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish in lasting peace and happiness.
Now, if there is a most important instruction that will be important not only today but for the duration of your life, making an effort more or less continuously to fine-tune, soak in your practice. If there is one thing that is more important than everything else, and there is, that thing is relaxation. It is almost always the case, even when we have been studying and practicing for decades. When things are not going well, it is almost always the case that when we stop and look, we are not relaxing, we are struggling. In some way or another, we are trying to do something other than what we are doing. Neither of which, the thing that we're trying to do or the thing that we're trying to avoid, is important. Because we have turned our meditation practice into a platform for struggle. So from the very beginning, start with relaxation. Some of us need it more than others, but everyone requires relaxation. In order for our meditation practice to bear fruit. Perhaps paradoxically, we must get out of the way. I think that we have all tried to banish our distractions, our conflicted emotions, kind of like running them out of town. The problem is that that which is running out of town is the very thing that we're trying to relax. So there's no substitute. We can talk about it from many angles. Abandon your ambition, whatever it is. Bring your mind to the experience of its natural stillness, which occurs most obviously, again, when we're relaxed. The experience, not the idea, not the experience that the intellect proposes, just the experience, raw and simple, of stillness. The mind still, the body still. Gentle. Best case, when the mind moves, just notice the movement. No antidote required. So let's take just a minute and relax a little more. Move your body if that's helpful. Sometimes when we think of the practice of calm abiding, we think of it as a beginner's practice. If you have found it easy to rest your awareness without distraction for periods of time, then it's okay. You can call it a beginner's practice. But if that has not been your experience, then best not fool yourself. The mind which cannot recognize its own stillness or its own movement is not a mind which will easily accomplish the Dharma. Shine is very important, critically important. So along the way, we need to discover and work with a number of what you might think of as tricks. There is a way in which it's fair to say we are all quite capable of relaxing, being present with the mind still, even though it is, for most of us, the experience that we cannot do that. But as time goes by, years and decades, we may come to recognize that actually The issue is we're still in the learning mode, and we're trying to act as if we've accomplished it. So one of the tricks is to take your time period for the practice of calm abiding, whatever the period is that you have given yourself, and divide it by 10. If you're trying to accomplish calm abiding in 10-minute segments, you're probably not going to be able to do it. But if you cut it back to 1 minute, or even divide that one down to 10 seconds, almost anyone can place their awareness on the stillness of the mind. And the awareness and the stillness kind of blend together, and we have a moment of complete relaxation and stillness. Easy to recognize, and critical to have that experience. Because it's easy to know that if you can relax the mind and rest in a state of utter stillness for even 1 second, you already know then that you can do 2 seconds. And if you can do 2, you can do 3, and so on, until you have 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours. What's important is confidence. The confidence that it can be done. If you practice calm abiding for a year, and I ask you, have you been able to rest the mind in stillness for 2 or 3 minutes? And do you say honestly, no? Then you're following the wrong instructions somehow. And you will lose your confidence. And when you lose your confidence, there's no hope. And the confidence that matters is the confidence that you know what it looks like, so that when you see it, it's clear. It must be clear. That's it. Sometimes people say, I can't say that to myself because it feels like I'm arrogant. That's okay, that might be true. Especially if you brag about it to your friends. But if you just notice, I sat there still and relaxed. And occasionally the mind moved, which is our way of saying thoughts and feelings are occurring. But I wasn't distracted by them. You must be able to recognize on your own, honestly, where you are, and you can get some help for that, but you are the final decision maker. So let's go back to the Shine for a few minutes before our break. This calm abiding. Settle your body. In the sense of relaxing, remaining in good posture, vertical. And then try this. Relax your awareness. And probably there are thoughts, feelings, emotions occurring. And you're aware of them. Do not call them distractions. Neither are they the enemy. Look at the content of your distractions without any consideration for using your intellect to see them, for they are utterly, those thoughts and feelings, inaccessible to the intellect. We want to see the experience. The conceptual analysis will not help us. It's kind of like an itch. When you have an itch, usually, you're not interested in the conceptual analysis. You're interested in the itch. So the thought here, or the experience, the feeling, we want to see that experience, not with the eye, but in the manner of recognizing the experience. I recognize my own anger, my own greed, my own jealousy, whatever it is. And you just allow your awareness to rest on that experience. If you bring the intellect to that experience, the experience will disappear and you will be left with the dry intellect. We're all very good at that. So my assumption is you didn't come here for that. Rest your awareness on the experiences that arise while you are still in body and still in mind. And as the mind moves, thoughts and feelings arise, and we remain aware of them. if a judgment arises, think of that as just the mind moving naturally. When we come to the end of a session, what is important from another perspective that we will cover as the day goes by, it is not only an issue of being a good citizen to dedicate the value of your meditation to the benefit of others. That dedication is actually critical to accomplishing your own benefit also. As long as you inadvertently dedicate the benefit of your meditation to yourself, you will find yourself stuck. So we always finish each session by dedicating the merit, the value of having made our effort as best as we can. With that, we close the session. So, thank you.
Who by this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
So now it's just 10 o'clock. We'll take a 10-minute, maybe 15-minute break. So quite a few people. And we'll come back and continue.
Maybe silence.
Hmm?
Are we in silence?
Oh yes, thank you. I'm reminded. Normally when we have this session like this, we observe silence on the breaks up until the lunch break. So if you'll do that, that'll be helpful.